On today's show, I sit down with Jackie Abreu-Hill. She is the mother in Houston ISD. If you thought that the education system in Texas couldn't get any crazier, insert Houston ISD. We cover all the scandals from the teacher taking the child to the bars, pedophilia taking place, assaults on children. So it's a very impactful show. You're not going to want to miss this. So don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and ring that bell. I've talked to a lot of parents since I moved back to Texas about education. And it seems like every time I sit down with another mom, or even if I talk to another dad, the stories are getting crazier and crazier. It almost feels like people are making this stuff up. Mm-hmm. It just gets worse and worse. It's like a nightmare.
Yeah.
But you're Houston mom, and you have a 9-year-old son. Now, over the last few years, when you hear other people in other states talk about education, you hear them talking about the decline in children's reading. And when I talked to you, you told me that your 9-year-old son, going to Houston ISD school, could not read at 9 years old. This is something that I would expect to hear from somebody, to be honest with you, in the left coast or in a very liberal state, because we've seen statistics over time talk about 97% of kids are not graduating being able to read.
Right.
I've never in my life, now some other people may go, oh my gosh, I've heard this before. I've never in my life heard anyone say that a child in Texas education, even if they're in Dallas, has say that their child could not read. And then I saw videos of the mothers at school board meetings. And what struck me at first was not necessarily, it was their demeanor.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were getting in front of the camera and they were saying, I'm here to advocate for my 5-year-old daughter who was sexually assaulted at school.
Yep.
And then another mother would come up and say, I'm here to advocate for my child who is, calm, cool, and collected. I probably would. That's why when the mama bear would come out, I don't know how I would compose myself. I'd probably be the ones being arrested, because these parents, they just seem so defeated. But I've never seen so many parents come forward in a fashion like that, where they're advocating for their child, calm, begging for help from a school board district. What are you guys dealing with?
Well, so my son, the whole story with him, he was in 3rd grade at the time. So during the COVID era, right? Mm-hmm. And so the learning just kind of was terrible. You know, one thing I liked about it was being home and seeing what was happening in the classroom.
Right.
But then when he went back to school, I noticed he couldn't read. And I was like, okay, I know we read with him and his words are, kind of choppy. But this is crazy. They're sending him home saying he can't read. He needs all these tests. Is he dyslexic? I'm like, what? No. The teacher was great. Don't get me wrong. But at this point, I'm frustrated. I'm like, that's it. And then the mask thing made it worse, right? So at this point, I made the decision, I'm pulling him out. So I put him in private school. The next year, this past year, he's reading all books. He's going to the library. It's his favorite place to go. I'm like, okay, so it wasn't my son. It was the school district, clearly, and the school. The school was not a high-performing school. Mm-hmm. It's a neighborhood school. So we're like, let's check it out. I'm all for public education. That's what I did. But now I'm like, there's no way. So fast forward, I'm an angry mom at this point. Like, what's going on? I didn't even care. At this point, or before this happened, I was one of those parents who were like, I trust the system.
I think like a lot of people say, yes, I trust the system, but really I'm finding a commonality between all the school districts and the parents, mm-hmm, with issues going on in the school. And it all started with the books, because that is what raised the red flag with you to kind of start jumping into what is going on. So and to me, that's a distraction, I think, too. From education, because if your child can't read, then there has to be something else going on in the elementary school that is taking precedence over making sure that these children can read. Because growing up, if your kid didn't read, you made sure that you had an email from your teacher every single, mm-hmm, afternoon saying your child needs to come into tutorials, either before or after school this many times a week. And They would always give you updated progress reports. Did the teacher ever do that with you?
No. There were some. I mean, it wasn't completely invalid, but it was very limited. And I'll say that because I'm assuming that if my kid couldn't read, there were probably several others too, you know, and I didn't really get as involved in the school at that time like I should have. But again, I was just trying to figure out what's happening right now. And so fast forward, I'm like, that's it. And this stemmed with the masks. Houston was one school district in particular in Texas when Governor Abbott said no more masks on the kids. They kept them. And so we were very angry about it. And so we started going to the school board meetings and we were protesting. I organized several protests to stand outside the HISD's, what do you call it?
Administration?
Yes, the administration building, sorry. And so we would stand out there every month and we would just hold signs and then we'd go into the meeting. Some of the meetings, they would only do Zoom. So we were like, okay, we'll protest outside and then we'll go home and get on Zoom and call in. Anyway, we started going and then I was like, that's it. I want to understand what's happening. I don't get what's going on because I just never really paid attention. And then going to these meetings, you start hearing stories of these parents coming forward that are far worse than my child not being able to read, which is a problem. But then you hear like these sexual assault allegations and you're like, hold on, they couldn't resolve this in the school. So now they're coming to the board.
So speaking of school boards, one of the biggest stories was one of the fathers who came forward about his son. And his son was, he calls it recruited. His son was recruited by a teacher who his son lied to the father, took him to a drag show that night. And one of the drag queens that was there was a convicted pedophile who, with an 8-year-old child. And the father did not know. And granted, this happened years ago. 2019. But the father decided that with all the issues going on, he wanted to bring it to the forefront because I looked into the history of Houston ISD. I don't know what's going on with their teachers or what type of teachers that they're hiring, but there is a lot of inappropriateness with a child, teachers with the children,
and they hide it.
And they do hide it. And they did have allegations towards a specific teacher. I think it was the same teacher we're referring to in 2019 that they looked into it, but nothing ever happened to it. But this father came to the school board meeting and he started talking about what this chemistry teacher did to his son. So it went viral.
It did. And I'll tell you why. So the dad reached out to me because I have an Instagram page that has been getting a lot of attention from Houston and all over Texas, really. HTX Kids First. It's been really monumental to try to help show what's happening. And we know that not all teachers are bad, right? Most are not. But the ones that are stick out like a sore thumb. And so he reached out to me. And at first he was explaining what happened. And I was like, I don't understand. Can we talk? Like, I need to understand what happened. And then he explained it. And I was like, oh my gosh. I said, have you brought this up to the board? And he said, no, I've just been too scared because I'm not sure, that this would have any implications on me. And at the time, he said his son was so afraid of his dad speaking up about it that it would negatively impact him.
Right.
And so he kept quiet. They had an investigation and a file that was done, allegedly. And apparently they still do, according to the dad. And I spoke to the dad just this morning, and he is trying to get more information out of them. But the problem is, and I told him, I said, you really need to bring this up. So he goes to the school board meeting, and he speaks about it. And then I was able to get it on Libs of TikTok, and it went viral. And Governor Abbott saw it. The TEA got a hold of it. Fox News got a hold of it. I mean, it went everywhere. And so the dad was like, thank you so much. And I was like, it's not me. You needed to get this out.
Right.
And we're so grateful that you did, because this teacher, we don't know what he could have done, not just with your son, but other students. And the worst part about it is he's got video footage, and I have it with the teacher.
It's almost kind of like undercover video. Undercover, because we see them talking inside the bar.
Yes, but the teacher tells him to film it all. That's the most bizarre part about this. So the teacher's telling him, get this on camera. And I'm like, you're just writing yourself your own ticket to prison.
You know what? I don't know anything about this guy, the teacher, but it almost sounds like if he's telling this kid, and he is a child, I don't care, you're under 18 years old, you're a minor. If he's telling this kid to get it on a film, he's done it before. Has he done it before?
I don't know. That's the question. What was the biggest issue that I had? And I told the dad, I said, look, here's the problem. He still has a valid teaching license until 2027. But now TEA has flagged his account since then, and it says that he's under investigation. But HISD is not cooperating with the dad.
What is going on in Houston ISD?
I don't know. It's sick because the parents that have come forward just this year alone, my mind has been blown. We've had parents call, a mom called screaming about how her daughter was sharing, 12-year-old daughter was sharing a locker room. A boy was using it at the same time as she's changing because he wants to identify as a girl. And so she was very angry, but she called in via Zoom. And then the other mothers who called about or came in and talked about the ones that you saw, that talked about their daughters who were sexually assaulted by another student. It was a 5th grade student on their 2nd grader.
Yeah, because in that one of the moms, the brother or sister witnessed it.
Oh, that's a different one.
Oh my goodness, I can't even keep up with all these.
I know that was the latest one from June. So that one,
they're still coming forward.
Yes. So June.
Has anything been done?
That's the grand question. Is anything being done? It's like these people come out on public record. People hear it. People see it. The news doesn't even cover it, which is another thing that I'm like, okay, you know, KHOU and all these other news networks, the Houston Chronicle, they come out to these meetings and they berate us.
Right. Because they have to frame a narrative, because that's what the media does. You have to frame a narrative. And if it doesn't fit their narrative, they're not going to cover it. If it does fit their narrative, they are going to cover it. But what's interesting to me, I just thought of this, is are there any attorneys? Are there any law firms that are coming in that are going to stand up for these parents and say, you know what, pro bono, we're going to come do something? We have attorneys all over the state of Texas. Are there anything? Are the parents filing charges against the Houston ISD? Nothing?
Honestly, I don't know. I would hope. And I've been trying to find a way to get in touch with these people just to find out, like, what is it that we can do as a group of moms and dads who have been kind of exposing all this? Can we help you somehow? Whatever that be, just getting you some exposure, because what's happening is not okay. And it seems like these principals don't even care either. And I don't understand what's happening. It's like the 4-year-old child that you're speaking of that got assaulted by a teacher where the brother watched. Apparently the 9-year-old, this is what she says in the video. It's all on public, the HISD YouTube page. The 9-year-old asked a teacher if they could help, and they said no.
Right.
I mean, if you're a teacher, you are there to protect the students and to teach them, of course. But
here's the thing: we have teachers that they want to say something, they want to intervene. I know in some of the school district that I'm in, the teacher's not allowed to, if there's a fight breaking out, they can't even put their hands on the kids. They can't intervene. I think some of the parents want to, but if they do, they're going to get in trouble. It's almost like there's a battle, because there's an ideology that they're trying to push so much in our schools that it's bad to be good and it's good to be bad.
Yep.
That's just what it feels like with me, because if you want to stop a teacher from abusing a child, typically the person that's ratting the other person out is going to be the one that's going to get in trouble, and the teacher's going to get off the hook because it's going to cause a scandal. And that's what I'm noticing. Well,
and to bring that to attention, so my friend's son, middle schooler, there was a child in their class who identified as a girl and wanted to be a she, her, the pronoun people.
Right.
And this child didn't know my friend's son. And so he called him a he, because he's a boy. So he didn't know. And the teacher yelled at him and said those are his incorrect or her incorrect pronouns. And this child, he is the sweetest boy. And he's like, I didn't know. He looks like a boy, so I assume he's a boy.
So, I noticed personally when the pronouns became more pronounced and I started learning about them more was during the COVID lockdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's when parents started really paying attention to what their kids were actually doing in their room. And then when I knew that the teachers were getting very upset that the parents were in the rooms when they were teaching the children, I thought, wow, something's not right here
Mm-hmm.
if they don't want the parents to hear what is going on or what the lesson is about. But we got state funding. I think the whole United States got funding, but there's ESSA and there's ESSER. So there's two different ones.
Right.
And so I know ESSER, you have been talking about the ESSER.
Yep.
So for people that don't know the ESSA, it's not COVID related,
Right.
but it's more for how they codified Common Core, how they took education and they started reshaping it into teaching the children about Marxism, socialism, radical environmentalism. This is government funding. This is government money going to the hands of the states. And when I started looking into the ESSER, it's like the government came in and they inserted themselves into our education. And that's when they started teaching this. And this all goes into social emotional learning.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to dive into that one day because the more I look at it, it's wild. But I don't want people to get mixed up with both. But parents have to be aware of ESSER because that's their children is being taught here. Marxism, socialism, radical environmentalism, being radical environmentalists, population control, everything that the far left is teaching is all wrapped into that, and this is funded. But you kind of have dug into the ESSA. It's another funding, but it's another funding that came specifically for COVID for resources, right?
Yes. HISD got $1 billion.
A billion?
$1 billion.
With a B?
With a B.
Lord.
And so a lot of us were like, okay, where did all this money go? Because we know that some of these schools are putting in HVAC systems and whatever else. Okay. There's ESSER certified teacher positions though that are open in Houston and they're only contract positions, which makes me so confused, wondering what are those positions and why are they such short term? I know it's probably related to the funding, but there's so much more to be.
I've looked up ESSER certified teachers. And to be honest with you, there's nothing. There's not a lot of information out there what an ESSER certified or ESSA certified teacher is.
No.
I can't figure out really what it means. What I could find, it does look nice and it looks great, but I couldn't really get to the nuts and bolts of what it means, especially when right now Houston ISD is begging for teachers. They don't even have enough.
Almost 1,000 teachers short.
What?
Yes.
1,000?
There's about 900 vacancies right now. 900, and school starts in 3 weeks.
So they have $1 billion.
Mm-hmm. But that's not that's just the tip of the iceberg. So out of that money, the good thing is the teachers were able to get an 11% raise. So that's a significant jump. They were actually one of the most underpaid teachers in all of the Houston area. So teachers were leaving because they were like, we're not getting paid to deal with this nonsense. And so we're out. So they got them a raise. People are still leaving though. So if that goes to tell you anything. And
why do you think that they're really leaving? Do you think that they're either good teachers that are tired of the corruption and the woke ideology, the education change, the Common Core, all the different changes and what they're used to, especially teachers that have been around for so many different years? Or are they the teachers that are scared to speak up? They're more conservative. They love teaching, but they're tired of it. They're mentally exhausted and they have to get a break and they have to get out of it.
It's both. There's two sides of the story. So I have teacher friends who are just tired in general because it's always teaching based on the STAR testing and all these requirements that they have to go through now. They have to go through all these trainings for SEL and how to be equitable and inclusive and all this stuff. And there's a lot of teachers who don't want to deal with that. They just want to teach what they know.
That's social justice warrior stuff, really. Yes. To be honest with you, that's not education, reading, writing, arithmetics. It's just, it's programming. I saw a teacher. I figured it out the other day. I saw a teacher was honest. I mean, really, I like how they're blunt. Some of these really radical, outspoken teachers are so blunt. She said something that I got it. One thing she said, I have a job to do. And they were talking, she was the kindergarten teacher. She said, my job, I am a safe teacher.
Oh, no.
Okay, so this is another thing parents have to really worry about too. I'm a safe teacher. My job is to shape these children. So when you look at like the whole ESSA funding with the radicalism of socialism, teaching them Marxism and teaching them their pronouns and their gender confusion and ideology, her job is to shape them.
Mm-hmm.
That right there, she put everything into perspective of why are they doing this to our children? That tells you right there, they're starting at 5 years old to shape them and what they want to be. But it's the verbiage that they're adding on top of it.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a safe parent? I almost fell out of my chair. Safe parent and unsafe parent. And what are you finding when it comes to the teachers? Because teachers using hashtags. What hashtags are they using in Houston?
So I hate that I have to do this, but I do find teachers, people call me the libs of TikTok of Houston. Oh. They say, you find all these things. How do you do it? I'm like, I don't know. You just know where to look. And they're obvious. If they put pronouns in their profile, you're going to find something.
Right.
And so they're getting smarter though. And so it's harder to find, but there are teachers who are publicly posting on Twitter, Instagram, and they're saying, for instance, one of the local high schools is, there was one teacher in charge of the Gay Straight Alliance or the LGBTQ club or whatever. And he said, we're a safe space or a safe haven or something along those lines in the post. And this was a post that the high school posted. It wasn't the teacher. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Okay, not okay. I found another middle school teacher who said something similar. If you want to come out, it was during Pride Month. I'm a safe person. I'm a safe place. No, you're not. And then another one, which I find out is a teacher's aide. He goes by, instead of Mr. MX, whatever his name is, and that he wants to be called she, they. He's in charge of the Gay Straight Alliance. And then he's hashtag safe teacher.
That's what they're doing. That's how, if people want to understand how they're undermining the children, that's it.
Yes.
That's it right there. Because if your parent is not a safe person or a safe parent to go to, then you can always go to a safe teacher. And then they're also using the other word, unsafe adult. Mm-hmm. If you're considering this, go to a safe adult. If you have an unsafe parent, don't go to them.
Right.
So speaking of school board, we're seeing seats flipped.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed in politics when people are, working different campaigns, they don't really pay attention to school board members. They don't pay attention to city council, and they don't pay attention to mayors. Now they do. Mm-hmm. Now they're paying attention to everything. And really I heard a congressman say the other day that the most important seat that parents need to pay attention and people need to really focus on is the school board. So you have in Houston, I know up in north in like McKinney and Frisco,
mm-hmm.
In Frisco, we got 2 seats.
Yep.
So we have 2 seats we just flipped. Y'all have 4 seats that you're trying to flip down there that you have to flip. Will that change the dynamic? Yes. I don't know the scale or the dynamic of how y'all's board is.
Yes.
But there's 4 you're focusing on, right?
Yes. Okay. So last year, November, we had our first election there were 4 seats up. We were able to flip 2 of them. Now, I think everyone needs to hear this because this is also just a typical voter fraud type of deal. School board elections typically aren't popular, right? And they had the most people come out to vote ever before last November.
In Houston.
We had great candidates. And the night it was November, that night, when they were counting the ballots, the power just went out. And I don't know how much you know about the person behind the elections in Houston. She's connected to Lena Hidalgo. She's actually being indicted. She resigned because...
It seems like a lot of power goes out and a lot of stuff goes out in Houston when it comes to election day. Interesting.
So it's just crazy because there were a couple seats that should have been flipped that they say there weren't enough mail-in ballots or whatever. One of them in particular had a surplus of mail-in ballots in one district. And the guy who ran, he claims to have proof that was fraud, but we have yet to see anything yet. So I honestly don't know. But I will tell you, it went into 4 runoffs for December, and 2 of those flipped conservative on our board. So
out of how many? So you have
2 out of 9.
Okay, so you have 9 school board members, and right now you have 2 conservatives.
Yes, and 7 other side.
Okay, and so now you're trying to flip 4 more.
Yes, and so we're actively looking for people, and I'm sure that there's people who are going to come out and try to run. I did speak with a lady who is going to run. She's got a great education background. She's very excited. You don't usually find people who are super excited to run for the school board, but
I think people are excited to fight.
Yes,
I think they're sick and tired of it, and that's what happens when you get sick and tired of something. People finally just say, "You know what? I've had enough. I'm throwing in the towel. I don't care what happens." Somebody's going to do it, because if we say nothing, that's what they want. Is they want us to say nothing. They don't want parents to run because they want to keep doing what they've been doing over the last Lord knows how long. But I think people are finally saying, I'm going to fight. Even if they don't have kids in the district or their kids are already graduated, God bless them. We need more people to do that.
Yes.
That will stand up and say, you know what? These kids are worth it. I'm going to throw my hat in the game, and I'm going to fight tooth and nail because nobody else is doing it.
It's crazy. But I'll tell you what, if people actually just went to these board meetings, they would probably be more inclined to want to run, because they fight. It's like a cat. It's like cats on that board. Yes, they fight and they bicker. Yes. It's actually really embarrassing. You just hear them. And there was one meeting we went to, and they were arguing about pronouns in a document, and we just couldn't contain ourselves. And we just started bursting out laughing. And we're like, are you kidding me? And, that's when one of the board members towards the end of the meeting said that we were not diverse enough.
Are you kidding me?
Nope. We were not diverse enough. So you know what we did? We found more people, and we showed up diverse, and now they're threatened.
Hey, you know what? If you're going to fight fire with fire, get as much, gasoline and just start, boom.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It is. Sometimes I've had to learn in some circumstances, not all circumstances, I've had to learn to laugh.
Yeah.
Because some of this stuff that I see, I'm just like, this is some crazy stuff. And if I don't laugh, then I would probably get upset or get angry. And I just can't. I can't do that anymore.
No, we do laugh in these meetings because they're comical.
Okay, so a lot of you parents are we're in school season. It's here. I don't know if I'm ready for summer to be over or not, but school season's here, and there's talk about masks. I mean, we're hearing. I'm over it. I even thought my daughter was over it. I think she's over it now. Everyone's over it, because when we came back from California, bless her heart, they started lifting the mask mandates. I guess it was like a year and a half ago, and all the cheerleaders were out there cheerleading, and she had the only mask on because she just wanted to make sure. It was actually kind of cute, but I was just like, get the mask off. But she's over it now, and I'm hearing some of the mothers, even up where I live in Frisco, talking about they better not mask our children again. Are you concerned that they're going to do that with you guys? Are they talking about it?
So 2 weeks ago, the superintendent sent out an email.
No.
Saying we are monitoring the situation. And that to me was red flag number 1.
What situation are they monitoring? I'm sorry, but COVID it's my personal opinion. It's been over for how many years now?
Well, at what point do we just say it's an endemic? We deal with it. Like the flu is something that we see every year, although it magically disappeared in 2020. But it's not just him. The teachers' unions are already sparking conversation on Twitter, and I caught them. They blocked me. I must get under these people's nerves, and it's fine. It means I'm doing my job. The teachers' unions, the Houston Federation of Teachers, which is part of the Texas American Federation of Teachers, they were calling on the board members to make a decision on BA5, because BA5 is a much different variant. And, despite everyone being vaccinated and boosted. And I said, wait a second, you're just trying to now advocate for masks again. And you're tagging, you're trying to tag our conservative members, are totally against it. Do you really think that you're going to manipulate them to mask our kids again? That's what they ran on. They ran on, we are not putting your kids in masks.
Right. I mean, I noticed, which I have no problem with, if there was a lot of kids at my daughter's school, high school, that wore masks. And I didn't mind. If you want to wear a mask,
Correct.
wear as many masks as you want a mask. You know, if the parents want to put a mask on their child, the kids will come to school with a mask on. But they've been saying, we're not going to mask your kids again. I'm just curious. And I don't even know what other variant. I mean, what new variant's going to come up during, the midterms? That's what I just wonder. But it's like, I don't even know what the BA5 variant is. I can't even keep up.
Just the other week, it was called the Ninja variant.
Are you serious?
Yes.
A Ninja variant? I haven't even heard that one.
So who knows? I mean, these people just want control.
Okay.
And it's all political. It's all political. And we have screamed that since May 2020. And we said, this is all political. Stop it. Stop the nonsense. And, we're just domestic terrorists in their eyes. So.
The state of Texas has been keeping a very close eye on Houston. And I did not even know this at all. I actually learned something myself. The state of Texas wants to take over Houston Independent School District, which means TEA wants to completely remove all the school board members. But the lower courts came in and has halted that. Am I correct? Like, this must be bad for a state to come in and Houston's a big flippin' city in the state of Texas.
Huge.
And they want to come in and remove all the school board members. It's that bad. What do you think that's going to come with? That's going to stay in court for so many years? But do you have any updates, or what do you think about this? Here's my question, because the state of Texas, Governor Abbott does appoint the heads of education. So if you really want to look at how all of this is coming down to our students, it all comes from the top. So you're having the top who is allowing all this stuff to go on across the whole state, not just Houston, because it's not just happening there, but across the whole state. Now you want them to take over, which I think right now anything would be better than what's currently taking place in your city, right?
Yeah. I think they were waiting to see with the elections, what would happen. I honestly don't know the status of the case. I do know that it's on the agenda quite frequently, but they don't talk about it publicly. It's usually during closed session that they have these discussions. I'm wondering if they'll wait for this next. I honestly don't know. The next school board election is next November, so 2023. If they can flip more seats and make changes, maybe, but something needs to give here.
Well, I think that would be the best case scenario.
But it's hard
to have the state come. I know it's hard, and it'd be really hard to have the state come in and take over all of that. If enough people found out about what was going on and enough parents got involved, if enough parents joined the PTA, that's a start where you're in the room with other parents that can make other parents aware. We have to get more actively involved. I was just like you. Back in the day, I had great teachers, great principal. I grew up with a great school district back then. Now it's a little bit different. I didn't really pay much attention, and they did a great job, helping my children and with me. I didn't experience in this type of stuff at all. But I guess the state of Texas coming in, I don't know. I don't know if it'd be a good thing. I don't know if it'd be a bad thing, but I think you guys have it in you to just keep the fight and to keep going on, because it's happening in city right next to you. It's happening all over Houston. Katy.
Everywhere.
We could just go on.
The thing that needs to happen in Houston, they need to break it up. It's too big. It's such a big city. It's widespread. These districts are huge. The August board meeting, they're supposed to be talking about redistricting. I don't know what that means yet in terms of what are they trying to redistrict? Will that have an effect on the upcoming elections? I don't know.
They redistricted us. We got redistricted. Schools got redistricted. Kids got redistricted to other schools. So, I know that's been happening quite often around Texas. So
it's going to happen.
There's one thing that you can say to the parents, because there's a lot of parents. I have parents reaching out. School board members reaching out, superintendents reaching out. It's kind of crazy how my phone's been blowing up, because I won't stop talking about the kids. And people are going, well, it's kind of scary. Good. I want you to be a little bit scared.
Yes.
I want you to be aware of what's going on. We have teachers that are taking kids to clubs. We have teachers that are abusing children in the schools, and nothing's happening.
No.
And nothing's happening. What would you say to the parents that are watching? How can they get involved? What's the first thing they need to look out for? And then what do they need to do next?
One, they need to understand what's happening in their school. They need to get involved, understand who their teacher is, the principal, just the minutia of just their own school. If they don't have a kid in the district, but they still pay taxes, go to the board meetings, listen what they're talking about, realize that everything that's on the agenda is probably ridiculous, and look at it with a fine tooth comb,
Yeah.
whatever is that. Did I say that the right way? And, find like-minded parents who want to find out more too. I mean, as an example, a friend of mine goes to a very well-known elementary school, not her, but her kids. And they have a very well-funded PTA, very well-funded. And remember we talked about ESSER dollars? Well, these are things that got brought up that they couldn't afford to get a new HVAC system, so they had to tap into the PTA funds. Now, parents may not think twice about this, but they need to be asking the questions. And this is why people need to get involved in understanding and just meeting more parents who are trying to scream the loudest. I mean, it's very hard in this city of Houston to try to be the people who are on the other side, like me and my group of friends who are trying to make a difference for these children. I mean, I don't have a child in the district anymore, but I want to help all these kids and help, especially the underperforming schools, whatever we can do to shed light on what's happening and the corruption that's going on.
You have to, because the FBI raided Houston Independent School District.
Yes.
I mean, that's a whole nother topic that we didn't even talk about. I mean, people can look it up on their own, but I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
And I can only tell, I don't know what the conversation is going to look like in 6 months or even a year, but I'm looking forward to that, to catching up and finding out what's happened after, the first, couple of months of school. First few semesters, I'm definitely going to keep up with you.
Yes.
And especially Houston. So thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right. If you're a parent, I don't know how much I can stress this enough, other than I'm going to keep talking about this over and over and over until I'm blue in the face. But you're a parent. It's school season. School has started. You have to get engaged. You have to know what's going on with your children. Find out who your teacher is. Find out who the principal is. Find out who the superintendent is. Get the curriculum in your hand. I know they're giving you Chromebooks. They want the kids on their computers. They don't want to do homework because they don't want you to see some of the work. Now, not all. I want to make it very clear. There's some great teachers out there. Some incredible teachers that truly, genuinely want what's best for your children. But there's also an agenda that's being pushed in the state of Texas, and it's our job to fight it. So I'm staying on top of this, and I'm not going to stop. You're going to see me sitting down with a lot of people that are in education. I'm just now digging into education in the state of Texas. You've seen that this conversation has gotten even more crazier than the last conversation that I had with Round Rock ISD. I can only imagine what I'm in for. So with that being said, thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you down the road.
So our marketing team tells us that everybody loves videos of cats.
Not everyone.
Well, maybe not everyone. But if you love cat videos, if you love liberty, and if you love getting your most trusted political news from anywhere in the state, we're inviting you to subscribe to Texas Scorecard. Now, you might not actually see any videos of cats in our content, but you will see videos that help you stay informed and up to date on the most recent shenanigans from the litter box Capitol down in Austin. So subscribe to our YouTube channel today, click the bell, and become an informed citizen.